Colin Powell dying this morning. It really hasn't sinked in yet. He died this morning at the age of 84 from complications from COVID. He was a giant. He was an influential figure over so many over the last 4 decades. Looked as a giant specifically in the realm of national security, but a lot of people knew him closely. He was just that all-around stand-up guy here in the nation's capital. Let's go now to former D.C. Mayor Sharon Pratt, who was good friends with Colin Powell. Sharon, as always, thanks for being with us. And I know that you're like me. You get the phone call and all of a sudden people say, can you talk about Colin Powell? And you say, yeah, about what? And then they say he passed. Nobody saw this coming.
No, it was very, very dispiriting to learn of it. It's a tremendous loss. He was a giant of a human being. He really was.
Sharon, what made him a giant? What made him different? I mean, we've been in town for a long time. People
Mhm.
crave power. He almost seemed to run from it. Is that what made him great?
Well, I no, I think he had ambition. I mean, he did not get to where he was without ambition, but I think it was very centered with a real moral focus. Number one, he ascended to significant positions of power, unprecedented, and yet he was never confused about this country, about the American dilemma, about racial discrimination. A great many people get inside the door and then forget how how the path that they had to follow or that others had to follow so they could get in that door. He never did. He always made it clear affirmative action was critical to his success. He always was helping other African Americans within the military service. And as for me, when I was elected, he and Louis Sullivan were there at the inauguration, and they were there not just to be
I
polite,
remember.
since the
Yeah.
but they were there because they wanted to reach out, and in particularly Colin reached out to say, how can I be helpful? I know you've got a lot of challenges. We had spiraling deficits. We had a lot of the gang issues in the district. The Congress had insisted that we hire police officers, many of whom were not qualified. That was Congress pushing that on the local government prior to my arrival. And I said, well, can you give us some help with appropriate training for our police officers? And he made that available to us at Quantico. So, I mean, and it was the appropriate type of training for civilian police officers. But it was, it gave also those officers a sense of that what they were doing was important. And by his facilitating for that, he was just a always good quality human being. He certainly, as did have all of us in life, made mistakes, but I think he was always driven by a real commitment to our country and also a great regard for his own community, African Americans.
Sharon, they asked me this on Good Start Your Day this morning, and they asked me whether or not I thought that if Colin Powell had run for president, would he have won? And I said yes. I wonder if you share that sentiment.
I did. I mean, he when he was being approached at the time, uh, he said a lot of people are talking to me about it. I don't, I happen to have been interacting with him more at that time than later in life. But uh, it wasn't even clear whether he was going to be a Republican or a Democrat. Uh, and at the time, he was so identified with the Republican Party, and actually, I thought personally it was an advantage as the first African American, just because it was one less question about whether you were committed to this capitalist system. Maybe one shouldn't be, but at any rate, he ultimately decided that just wasn't his thing. In answer to your question, though, I think he could have won. But I don't think it was, I just didn't, I don't think it was a process that he enjoyed.
I'm curious, as someone who has been there, why was he comfortable being able to talk about affirmative action, being able to talk about being an African American, and yet we have people that sit on the Supreme Court that deny that anything in their life ever happened because of things like affirmative action? I'm on television because they were looking for a black person in my hometown of Wheeling, West Virginia, back in a decade that I don't even want to name. But why was he so comfortable in his skin? And would he have been, I guess, a better transitionary candidate than a Barack Obama for an America that really hadn't embraced the fact that black people actually live here?
Well, I don't know. I mean, some people just are very comfortable about who they are. You have many stories of African Americans. Many people end up almost railing against our own community because it's so difficult. It's such a, as we call it, the struggle in America. For whatever reason, he always felt comfortable about who he was, and he had great faith in his ability to achieve his objectives and an eagerness to make certain other African Americans hit their milestones, which is why I think he and Louis Sullivan came to the inauguration. It wasn't about Sharon Pratt, it was about wanting this city, particularly a city of significant color, to succeed. Um, so I don't know. I mean, he never walked away. Indeed, he always was very clear, very assertive about issues associated with African Americans. But he knew how to, thread that needle, which is, a challenge of operating in the highest spheres of power, but at the same time making certain you keep people faithful to an issue that has yet to be fully addressed.
I know you, Sharon, and I know this town. There are certain people that when you meet them, you sort of say, that was Colin Powell. When you met him the first time, were you kind of gobsmacked by the fact that this was that guy?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, he had great presence. You meet a lot of personalities, extraordinary personalities, when you're the mayor of Washington D.C. It sort of goes with the turf. You have problems, but that happens to be one of the perks. And he just was a larger than life person, and that was because he had a real sense of himself. He had a real sense of his mission, and he was quite determined to make the best of whatever time he had here on earth. And you could feel it. I mean, some people take a room. He took a room. I wouldn't give it 10 presidents were in that room. He took the room because he had a larger than life personality, a sense of himself, a sense of his purpose, a sense of mission, and it just emanated from him. And he didn't try to project it; it just was there. And so, yes, you would be quite taken to be in his presence.
You know, it's fascinating you put it that way, but that's exactly the way they describe it in Washington. They take the room. I'm curious, there are two groups of people in Washington. There are people that run for political office, and then there are people that say, I can win if I run, but decide they don't want to do it because they don't want the job. Was he one of those rare beasts in Washington that knew he could become president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, but also realized maybe this isn't what I want to do? And what was that voice of Alma Powell that convinced him not to run versus a Michelle Obama that said when Barack decided he was going to give it another go, she says, oh my God, we're going to try this again?
Well, I think, yes, he did say Alma was very much opposed to it, very, very concerned for his life. Were he to seek that office at that time, he would have been the first. And first, had he won, of course, we'd had Shirley Chisholm, who sought office earlier on. Um, so, yes, I think he liked power in a positive way. One doesn't necessarily have more power by being the president. Sometimes, if you're smart, you can often have quite a bit of power by advising presidents and, husbanding your counsel in a smart and select way. So even though it was maybe something you had to pay attention to, I just think he felt that's not me. I'm not a retail politician. I'm not somebody, and I don't necessarily like being the target like that. I don't think he felt that was his personality. I think he felt he could be more effective by selectively guiding and assisting others because others would inevitably listen to him. It isn't as if he had to fight for a position for people to listen to him. He always got the position because they did listen to him. So he already had the power. He didn't need an office to acquire power. And I think that was it. He didn't need the office to have power. He had power.
You know, it's always fascinating. There is the power behind the power, and people don't understand what we call the rubber chicken circuit, which is where you go from one banquet to another banquet, the plaques, the flowers, and basically the praise. It's part of the job description in the political world that you are in. Vernon Jordan was the power behind the power in the Clinton administration. Describe those people, those rare people in Washington that have that power and wield it wisely, but you may not necessarily know who they are and how he will be shaped in history when all of the books are finally written on his life and legacy.
Well, I think both of them knew how had power, in part because they had good counsel, good wisdom, and a great skill with people. You have to have it's a different kind of skill than let's say retail politics, where you go house to house, door to door. Although I think both of them were very charming, uh, but um, it's a different kind of an ability to move people, to get people to listen to you, and to guide them selectively. So that means you don't, every time you walk in the room, you don't come in with an opinion. But when you come in with an opinion and counsel, people know you've really thought it through and in a way that works to their advantage, to the advantage of a greater mission than just ingratiating yourself. That is part of it. You have to have something to offer. You have to have clear, thoughtful insights. And I think even Colin, in that sense, would probably be a better recognized person because he did hold public positions. He wasn't elected, but he was appointed constantly to very significant public positions. So he had to work that political bureaucracy every day. And that's a different ball game than counsel from the outside. Not that counsel from the outside isn't valued, but he had to survive within that political bureaucracy because you're dealing with a lot of other people who want to be the last one the president listens to. Everybody wants to be that the last one the president listens to. And if you're somebody the president does listen to, then you're a target. They're gonna, you've got a lot of competitive personalities who are going to try to challenge you. He survived that on several occasions with different presidents, which is quite remarkable. And he always came out of it basically unscathed.